Well, good morning, everybody. In today's report, I want to start you off with some satellite data. Just to show you last night as the sun was setting, I want you to keep your eye up here in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to have a lot of conversation about what's coming into the Northwest. You see, there's pretty strong flow coming off of the Pacific Ocean due to a relatively unblocked Pacific jet stream pattern, and that's going to continue to deliver multiple systems into the Northwest. We're going to take a look at those precip totals in a second. But before we get there, just as the sun was rising this morning, you can see there are several places over here. For example, in the eastern Corn Belt, getting down into the Appalachian Mountains, and then over here to the Atlantic coastal plain, where there's a lot of very low-level cloud field, and that's a lot of fog. And so I went this morning just to pull up the sounding observing network, which is what you got here. This is where we basically launch weather balloons, and I really do wish they would launch some in kind of the holes in here, especially in the eastern Corn Belt. But anyways, I went to the one at Lincoln, Illinois, right in the middle of Illinois, and you can see the temperature inversion. So near the surface, it might be difficult to see there, but you got it 38 degrees Fahrenheit as a dew point and 38 as a temperature. And I called my wife this morning, and yeah, we've got a dense fog in central Illinois, but you can see the strength of this inversion and how very dry the air is aloft. Now that's going to change a lot in the coming days. We're going to really moisten this up and crank these temperatures up in the midsection of the country, stretching from Texas all the way through the midsection of the country with this new pattern. So let's get in there and talk about it. Here's our all hazards weather map, and you can see all the locations with dense fog advisories early this morning. But one of the things I want to point out is we're going to have some very strong winds racing through the plains out of the south. That's really going to start to crank these temperatures up while a much deeper trough dives into the west. We've got winter storm warnings in the Sierra Nevada, winter weather advisories out for much of the Intermountain West, and then high wind warnings in parts of the Great Basin getting here into the eastern side of the Snake River Valley. So this is all very indicative of the next few systems coming through. So by midday today, large area of high pressure sits over the southeast. The flow comes out of the south from Texas, clear into the Canadian prairie, and the deeper trough dives into the west, and that's what's going to drive these strong southerly winds through parts of the Great Basin. Okay, to see what those winds are doing, take a look at these temperatures we're forecasting for today. Parts of the central and north central plains and upper Midwest could see temperatures today that are over 30 degrees warmer than normal, while the cold air dives into the west. We'll see on Wednesday a broad area of extremely warm conditions as the first of multiple systems starts to take shape here. Could get some snow. We've got winter storm warnings out for this part of Montana. Could get some snow here as our first system goes right through parts of southern Saskatchewan into Manitoba, right into this particular line here. But look at the heat that's out ahead of this. So there's Thursday's high temperatures, and getting into Friday, you can now see the depth of that trough. So this is what we've been keeping an eye on here for a while. Now, throughout most of the rest of this pattern, the east hangs on to its warmer conditions, but we're going to be seeing possibly some near record cold coming into parts of the Canadian prairie from British Columbia all the way over, that's the coastal Canadian region, but through the Canadian prairie of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And you can see that extends down into parts of Montana and the Dakotas here. So expect possibly upwards of a 60 to 70 degree swing in temperatures inside of a week for this particular region. Okay, once we get later on this week, I want to show you something here. This is a map of precipitable water. It's basically just how much moisture is in the atmosphere. And what I'm really paying attention to is by the time we get into like Thursday and Friday, you can see one large branch right in through here coming out of the Pacific Ocean targeting the Pacific Northwest. Some might refer to this as an atmospheric river. At the same time, the deeper trough of colder, drier air here in the Great Basin and Four Corner states, out ahead of it, those strong southerly winds are putting a lot of moisture into the low atmosphere, and this is going to really increase the risk of severe storms on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in this area. So we have these two large plumes of moisture. In fact, there's a third as well around an upper level low sitting and spinning here just off of the Bahamas. So you can see one targeting, one lifting north, and then one here sitting and spinning just off the southeast coast. Now, I am concerned later this week, as we talked about yesterday, of the severe weather risk that could stretch from Texas and Oklahoma to Kansas. Storm Prediction Center's now got that in their Day 3 outlook, so this would be for Thursday. But as we go forward into Friday and Saturday, that severe weather threat will move a bit farther to the east over the lower Mississippi River Basin and parts of the Mid-South. So we stitch that all together, this is what we get. Okay, next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. So we have the first of these systems racing here now. The second one diving into the northwest, pulling all the way down to the Four Corner states, emerges here Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Outside of that, we do have a drier pocket here in here, a couple of drier pockets, but possibly picking up several inches of rain as the flow goes over the mountains and the Cascades and some heavy snows here. We'll take a look at the totals in a second. So why don't we go straight to the European model and get a good look at this. So as we play forward, scattered rain exits New England with that first system that started this weekend over Texas. We do have some scattered storms that are down in southern Texas as well, but the main event, the first system is here. It's coming out of Montana tonight, on Tuesday night, and then pulling through the Canadian prairie, bringing some heavy snow behind it, right in through there. While that's occurring, the much deeper trough has moved into the west through California. You're going to see by Wednesday night into Thursday morning, it's now pulling over the Four Corners states. This low ejects somewhere in the panhandles and then pulls right out here into Kansas Thursday night into Friday morning. So we're going to watch for the severe storms Thursday night and Friday morning here. It then pulls itself farther to the east over the Red River Valley and then starts to eject quickly north. And what it's going to ride is the tail end of this front from the first system, which went across here and now sits over parts of the Canadian Maritimes. So see the front right there? So what's going to happen is that low is going to quickly lift through the central Corn Belt, pulling into the Great Lakes states and dragging its front right over the Mississippi River late this week. So Thursday, severe storms here. Friday into Saturday, pulling farther into the south and east. But the pattern is still open and moving, so the next system's already in place here, coming across parts of the west, and there's a third low that's following it right there. So as that low dives in, take a look at how much snow we're expecting in the Cascades, Northern Rockies, the Sierra Nevada. This is next Sunday night, Monday morning. And as that pulls into the west, we don't yet have the details. If you watched my video last night, we kind of explained this on where this next low is going to emerge next Monday into Tuesday, but it could deliver some snow to the northern plains. Now, while that's happening, that low I mentioned off of the Bahamas is finally starting to bring some of its moisture into the East Coast. So we'll keep a close eye on that, but this gets you out a week with the current forecast from the European model. Snowfall, let's take a look here. European model, let's trust this out here to about a 5-day outlook. There we go. So what we see here is the heaviest snow band stretching through the Canadian prairie, but possibly picking up several inches in the northern Rockies into the central Rockies, and then also on our coastal ranges like the Cascades and the Sierra Nevada. I know they're off the coast, but close enough. And what we got here is the second wave. Remember that big river push? Look at that. Adding up quite a bit more in this area. So this is going to build up some significant snowpack early in the west. The question marks are with this system where it ejects next Monday here. Not really ready to kind of make a point as to what might be happening in this particular area. European model at this point says the probability of getting at least 6 inches for that region, it's cranking up there 50 to 60%. So there's something going on here. But of course, the heaviest snows are in the mountains in the west and then following the track of that first low. Chances of getting at least an inch of liquid equivalent. So it'll be snow in the west, but rain here. Still see that parts of Kansas that desperately need this having a 50 to 80% chance here, but very wet in eastern Texas following this corridor where that moisture kind of opens up from the Gulf here. From there, just want to show you week 1 on the left, week 2 on the right. The pattern continues to stay active, throwing deep troughs into the western United States, and that promotes a storm track that kind of comes out of the Rockies and heads towards the Great Lakes. We've seen that pretty consistently. This is from the upper level low, might finally spread next week some rain into parts of the East Coast, but we could have a drier region in through here just based on ridging that keeps occurring in that area as deeper troughs come into the west. But take a look at what that same pattern does to our temperatures. We could see remember, October was so very warm across the western part of North America, and now the whole pattern has flipped. And in last night's in-depth analysis, we discussed how long we think this is going to be around. But we could be talking about near record cold coming out of British Columbia through the Canadian prairie, and that does clip, parts here of the northwestern plains. As we get out there day 10 through 15, it's still there. So if there's a place that hangs on to the warmer conditions, it is pretty far to the east with this pattern. So expect very volatile temperatures over the next 15 days, getting us through the front half of November. Finally, South America, the front is continuing to clear. I don't have a lot of evidence of widespread frost damage from this front, but as it pulls its way toward the north, a very dry next 10 days or so for much of Brazil's growing areas, all the way down into Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, where we're struggling with substantial drought, especially along the Paraná River. The long-range models, which we talked about last night, continue just to double down on the risk of drought, continue to expand and develop here in this region of Argentina and pockets of southern Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. So that story just continues while La Nina keeps its grip on this pattern. If you get a chance to read today's report, we do talk about those temperature fluctuations. We talk about the impacts of the winds, and we keep a close eye on what these next few systems are going to do in terms of severe weather. So I'll keep it there. I'll talk to you again in the morning. Thanks.